Hello all. In the previous recording, we have seen conciliation, and now we would be looking at the second machinery that was available under Industrial Dispute Act 1947 for the settlement and prevention of industrial disputes. And that second machinery is called as arbitration. So arbitration is a process where the two parties who are having their dispute will refer their dispute to a neutral third party known as arbitrator. In arbitration, what is the major difference between arbitration and conciliation is that in arbitration, the arbitrator gives his judgment on the dispute, while in conciliation, the conciliator will talk to the disputing parties to reach at a final decision. Whereas the arbitrator does not enjoy any judicial powers like the conciliator. The arbitrator will listen to the viewpoints of both the parties and then gives his decision, and that decision which he is giving is binding on both the parties, which means that they should accept the decision. And then this decision will be sent to the government, and the government will publish this decision within 30 days of its submission, and the same decision will become enforceable after 30 days of the publication. In India, there are two types of arbitration: voluntary arbitration and compulsory arbitration. What is voluntary arbitration? In voluntary arbitration, both the parties will appoint a neutral third party as an arbitrator, and this arbitrator will act only when the dispute is referred to him. With a view to promote voluntary arbitration, Government of India has formed Tripartite National Arbitration Promotion Board in July 1987. Tripartite means there would be three parties. Who are the three parties? The employees, the employer, and the third party is the government. But whatever the decision comes in voluntary arbitration, it is not binding on the disputants, which means whatever the decision comes in the voluntary arbitration, it is not binding on both the parties. So when the decision which has come is not binding on both the parties, then there is no use of this voluntary arbitration. That is why in India it is not successful. But whereas if both the parties are having strong moral values, and if they believe that whatever the decision comes we should follow, then it would be an exception. But when in the law, when it is clearly mentioned that the judgment of the voluntary arbitration is not binding, then why do the parties have to agree to it? That is the reason why voluntary arbitration is not successful. And the second type of arbitration is compulsory arbitration. In compulsory arbitration, the government will force both the parties to go for arbitration. or otherwise both the parties can ask the government to refer their dispute for arbitration. The judgment that was given by the arbitrator under compulsory arbitration will be binding on both the parties. Then the third machinery that was available is adjudication. The ultimate legal remedy for the settlement of an unresolved dispute is its reference to adjudication by the government, which means the ultimate, the final legal solution for the industrial dispute is nothing but adjudication. The government has the power to refer the dispute to adjudication with or without the agreement of the disputing parties. That is called as, if it has been referred to the adjudication with the permission or with the consent of both the parties, then it is called as voluntary adjudication. Or when the government decides to go for adjudication even without the consent of both the parties, then it would be called as compulsory adjudication. Under adjudication process, again, according to the Industrial Dispute Act 1947, three-tier machinery is available. One is labor court, second one is industrial tribunal, and third one is national tribunal. Now we will see each of these three in detail. What is labor court? Labor court is formed under section 7 of the Industrial Dispute Act 1947, and this labor court will consist of one person who is going to be the presiding officer of this labor court. The qualification of this person is, he can be a judge of a high court or a district court or an additional district court judge for not less than 3 years. Or he has been, which means earlier, if he has been a presiding officer of a labor court at least for 5 years, then he is eligible to be appointed as a presiding officer for a labor court. The labor court will deal with the matters which are specified in the second schedule of the Industrial Disputes Act 1947. What are these matters? These matters are property or legality of an employer to pass an order under the standing orders. What are standing orders? We will see in the coming slides about this standing orders point. Again, the second point also deals with the application and interpretation of standing orders. We will see what are these standing orders in the coming slide. Discharge or dismissal of workers, including reinstatement or grant of relief to workmen wrongfully dismissed, which means that if any of the workers have been discharged from their duties, have been asked to leave their duties, or if they are dismissed from their duties, or if any grant or relief to the workman is wrongfully dismissed by the management, then it can go to the labor court. Withdrawal of any statutory concession or privilege. As per the law, there are some concessions or privileges which the workers should get. like minimum hours to work in a day, or minimum holidays, minimum facilities, etc. If these concessions or privileges have been withdrawn by the organization, then they can go for the labor court. If there is any case of illegality, if any case of illegal activities, or in case of a strike, or in case of a lockout, they can go for labor court. All the matters which are not reserved for the industrial tribunals, such matters can be referred to the labor court. So what is industrial tribunal? Industrial tribunal is formed under section 7A of the Industrial Dispute Act. The government may constitute one or more industrial tribunals for the resolvement of the industrial disputes. Compared to the labor court, industrial tribunals will have much more scope of jurisdiction. An industrial tribunal is constituted only for a limited purpose, limited period, for a particular purpose, on an ad hoc basis, on an random basis. If that particular purpose is solved, then industrial tribunal will get automatically dissolved. So what are the matters that comes under industrial tribunal? Wages, including the period and mode of payment. How are wages paid? Periodically, and in what mode are they paying it? Compensatory and other allowances. If there is any illegality, or if there is no transparency in giving compensatory or other allowances. Hours of work and rest periods. If the employees are made to work for a longer hours without any rest. If wages during holidays, if the wages are not given, then in case of any problem with bonus, profit sharing, provident fund, gratuity, then classification by grades. So workers are classified as grades based upon their skill and based upon their experience. If there is any problem in that classification, then rules of discipline. If the organization rules of discipline are not practical, if they are not in a position to be followed, then rationalization. If the organization does not follow the principle of rationalization, then so rationalization means an action of giving explanation to the behavior which is not perfect. So you have done some mistake, or you have behaved in a somewhat not a good way, you behaved in a bad way, but even for that bad way of behavior, if you are trying to give some logical reasons, then that is called as rationalization. And retrenchment of employees and closure of an establishment or undertaking, which means if the employees have been retrenched, if the employees have been removed and the organization is closed, then and any other matter which is coming from time to time based upon its seriousness, it can also be referred to the industrial tribunal. National Tribunal. This is the third machinery that was available under adjudication, and this is a one-man tribunal. It was appointed by the central government, and it looks after the cases of national importance. If the central government thinks that the matter is very serious, then it has the right to appoint two persons also as assessors to advise the national tribunal. When a matter has been given to the national tribunal, then labor court or industrial tribunal will not have any jurisdiction over that matter. It is completely under the sole authority of the national tribunal only. So, like I said, what are the standing orders? Industrial Employment Act 1946 defines the standing orders as: standing orders are the means rules relating to the matters set out in the schedule, such as standing orders means rules of conduct for workmen employed in industrial establishment. If a worker has to work in an industrial establishment, there are certain rules of conduct, and such rules are called as standing orders. The objective of this act is to require employers in industrial establishments to formally define conditions of employment under them. Under this act, every management should clearly define the list of activities or the list of conditions that the workers should follow if they have to work for their organization. I am an organization called as Honda, and whoever wants to work for Honda, I will give them specific conditions. These conditions should be accepted by each and every person who is ready to work for Honda. Then these conditions are called as standing orders. What are the matters, or what are the ingredients that the standing order should have? First one is classification of workers. How are workers classified in your organization? Permanent, temporary, apprentice, probationary, or badlis. Badlis means frequent transfers. The job where frequent transfers are involved. If you get a badli job, which means that you should be mentally prepared to get frequently transferred. Then, manner of intimating to workmen periods and hours of work, holidays, pay days, and wage rates. Every workman should know how many days that he has to work in the organization, and what are the pay days that are available for him. Pay days means I will not work, but even then I should get the payment. Or pay days means out of the number of days I work, what are the days that I get my payment. And wage rates, how are the wage rates given in that organization. Shift working. If the employees are working in shifts, how are they working? On what manner are these shifts divided and decided? Attendance and late coming. So daily where the worker should report his attendance, and what are the actions that the management is going to take in case the employee is coming late. What is the procedure to apply the leave, and who has the authority to grant the leave? Employees should enter the organization by which gate? In huge organizations, there are number of gates, and based upon the employees' cadre, they will come from each gate. Gate A belongs to top management, Gate B belongs to middle level management, Gate C belongs to lower level management, and Gate D belongs to daily labor. So if Gate D, daily labor, cannot come from Gate A or Gate B or Gate C. Moreover, in each and every gate, employees will be physically frisked, which means they will be physically checked. In a huge organizations where confidentiality is being maintained, like defense, atomic energy, or where these aeroplanes and all are manufactured, like HAL and all, in such places, employees, when they are coming into the office, they will be checked. Employees, when they are leaving from the office, they will be checked. When will the particular section in the organization be closed, or when will it be reopened? And in case of some temporary stoppage of work, what are the rights and liabilities of the employer and the employee should also be clearly mentioned. Because in case of some loss, one section in the organization you are going to close. In an organization there will be many sections: welding section, painting section, fabrication section, oiling section. For example, welding section is incurring huge loss and I decided to close welding section. So when I am deciding to close the welding section, is there any option to reopen the welding section? Yes or no? In case if it is yes, when am I going to open it? In case if it is no, then the employees who are presently working in that welding section, what are those employees' rights and liabilities? And as a management, what is my right and liability? So in case of termination of employment, I have decided to terminate or remove an employee, then when should the notice be given by the management to the workman or to the employee? When the employer should give the notice? Suspension or dismissal for misconduct and acts or omissions which constitute misconduct, which means employee is not able to discharge his duties perfectly. Employee is not very faithful or very standardly performing his duties. So he is involved in some illegal activities, or he is actually involved in some misconduct. In such cases, how to suspend him or how to dismiss him? What is the process? That also needs to be mentioned. If employees are treated unfairly by the employer or his agents or his servants, then how the employee reacts? Or if an employee is being treated unfairly, then he can go to the National Tribunal. Like I said, these are only the list of some of the factors. Many other factors which may arise from time to time, based upon their seriousness and based upon their complexity, they may also be referred to the National Tribunal. So with this, we are going to conclude the fourth unit of the management of industrial relations, and shortly we will meet together for the fifth unit. Thank you one and all.